Asaf, Aron, Prisman on the Parsha. This week, Parshas Bechukosai. Why? Ask why.
Shalom to everyone. In this week's Parsha for Bnei Chutzla is Parshas Bechukosai. The very first pasuk starts off and says that if we will abide by the laws of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, im bechukosai telechu, and we will observe the mitzvos, ve'es mitzvosai tishmoiru, ve'asisem oisam, and we will do them, we'll perform them, then there'll be a list of blessings that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives us. Now, the main question of this pasuk that most of the Farshim deal with, one of which is Rashi, what does it mean, bechukosai telechu? It can't be if you'll abide by my laws. Which rules? Which laws? Mitzvahs? Can't be. That's the next two words. Ves mitzvosai tishmoiru. So what does that mean? So Rashi gives his answer, which from here we learn that we need to be amelim b'Torah, toil in the Torah, etc. But even after Rashi answers, what we have to deal with is, what does it mean, and you will perform them? Va'asisem oisam. The commandments and the mitzvahs, we already said, Hashem said that's already part of the deal, the t'nai. The condition is that we have to perform them, because it says, Bechukosai telechi, you will go in the ways of my laws, and mitzvosai tishmori, you have to observe the mitzvahs. So what's going on over here? What's pshat? So my friend showed me a heilige sforno. The sforno on this pasuk deals with these questions, and it's phenomenal, and I think it's a very, very important concept, bichlal, how we live life. The sforno says, the chukois, the beginning of the pasuk when it says im bechukosai telechu, that's talking in the general sense to say that if we would go in the ways of Hashem, meaning abiding by all His mitzvahs in the general sense, all the laws, all the mitzvahs, it's all the same. If in generally the way we go in our life, we abide by the rules that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives us, that's the first condition. How do we know that chukosai, the word in Lashon HaKodesh, means that? So he brings many proofs for that. Just like we shouldn't go in the ways of the goyim, it's a general sense of going in the ways of the goyim. It says, "U'b'chukoseim lo telechu," we should not go in their ways. And it says in another place, "Chukosai tishmoiru." So he brings proof that the concept of b'chukosai telechu is a general sense of abiding by all the rules Hashem sets forth for us. Then, what does mitzvosai tishmoiru? So over here, if you look carefully in the words of this phono, he explains there's actually two things going on over here. Mitzvosai tishmoiru, shmira, the word shmira is also to learn, from the idea of that shmira, he brings the raya that it's like Mishnah. Mishnah is we're learning the Torah. So if we learn the mitzvahs, so we understand exactly what the rules are, not just perform them, but learn them, even be'iyun, he says, even. If we learn them properly to get all the concepts clear and the gedarim clear, and that's not enough, he says another idea, and we mechaven by him, that's his lashon, which you can see from the context, he means that we shouldn't suffice by technically understanding what we need to do and what the concepts are and what the definitions are, but rather we should also try to connect to the mitzvah, not just to the law, but to the spirit of the law, meaning to the tamei mitzvahs, like the chinuch writes, the tamei mitzvahs. We should try to get also another understanding of how this mitzvah relates to me and how it can affect me and why it's good for me to do it. Not just for the obvious reason that we have to do it because Hashem told us to do it, and it's like the Rambam says in Sof Hilchos Tmura and also in Sof Mela, he says the concept that of course all the mitzvahs Hashem gives us, they're gzeres, they're laws and rules we have to abide by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But aside from that, a person should do his best to try to give reasoning, so he'll have a taste in the mitzvahs, he'll connect to the mitzvahs more. So that's the idea, the Sfornos Mechadesh, that Shmira mitzvahs, es mitzvosai tishmoiru, means not only should we learn to know how to do them, learn the rules properly, but also connect to them, mechaven to them, to understand the spirit of the law, and try to get a taste of the mitzvahs, and from a spiritual sense, what they're all about, how they affect us, how they change our midot, they make us a better person, etc., etc., as the chinuch does for all the mitzvahs, and he explains exactly this idea in his akdama, and he explains how I'm going to tell you all the reasoning behind the mitzvahs, even though that's not the real reason, but at least you get a taste and be able to connect to a mitzvah better. Ends the sfolna with our major question that we ask, so what's v'asisim oisam at the end of the pasuk? What does it mean that you should, and the other condition before all the blessings, that we get all the blessings, is that we also keep the rules. Of course we're keeping the rules. That's already in the two first conditions we asked. Says sfolno, as he a lot of times does, when something seems to be repetitious. Over here it means it's the result of what I said before. If you will perform the previous two conditions, and you'll abide, in a general sense, you'll always do the rules. And also, you will lishmo, you'll keep and safeguard the mitzvahs, which means you'll learn how to do them properly. And also, you'll try to connect to them in the spirit of the law, not just performing the law, but I'm trying to understand the reasoning behind the mitzvahs and how that affects you, how that makes you a better person, and is mitaken you. And then if you do that, you will be assured to reach the end result of the asisem oisam, which he says you'll end up doing them not just out of fear because Hashem said you need to do them and you'll do them, but because you'll connect to them. You'll be able to do it from your own will, from ritzoin nafshechem is his lashon. And therefore you'll reach the level of performing the mitzvahs out of love, me'ava, and the person that does that will reach the level, as the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos says, you'll be able to do that your Ratzon will be like Ratzon Hashem. You want to do Ratzon Hashem. Because if you don't understand why you're doing them and you don't realize how it affects you, then it's hard for you to do it out of love. But once you realize how it affects you and how it makes you a better person, even if it's just a tenth of what really the reason is, but you toil as much as you can to get some sort of a connection, to be a kli kibul, to connect it, to be a vessel, to connect to the mitzvah, that will yield the end results. It's brought down by the Maharal. It's interesting that halacha, the numerical value of halacha, which represents the concept that we discussed, concept number 1, under the category of abiding by the mitzvahs, is to understand what the halacha is, to know the geder, what exactly you need to do, what are the rules, how do we define them, in which situations they're applicable, etc. That is what the halacha represents. The law is the halacha. It's interesting that the halacha brought down by the Maharal is Gematria, the numerical value of 60, which is the same numerical value as Kli. Kli is a vessel. And he goes on to explain that the halacha is the Kli. It's the vessel that we connect to Hashem, the vessel, but it's only the Kli. We still need the Or in the Kli, which means the soul. The Kli represents the guf, the body. What about the soul? The soul is connecting to the mitzvah, not only knowing, more than knowing, not just knowing what to do and in which cases it's applicable, but also to connect to the mitzvah and see how it's going to change me. And we know the chinuch, as we mentioned earlier, the chinuch explains for every mitzvah, why do you do this? Because this will change you to become a better person and care for other people, or whatever the mitzvah is. And by learning that, you're able to connect in a deeper way to the mitzvah. And even though we know that the real reasoning we'll never get to in this world, and we'll only be able to get to that in the next world, but we're working on ourselves to be able to connect to the mitzvah. And once we connect to the mitzvah, as the Sfono explains, it's a different ballgame. Why? Because we're able to reach this amazing end result of performing the mitzvahs out of love. And why can we reach that point? So that we said in previous Divrei Torah, because you are who your ratzon is, your will. That is what defines you. And when you're able to do something because it's your will, and it is your will, once you understand why HaKadosh Baruch Hu is giving us these mitzvahs, even if it's only to the 10% of the real reason, but once HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you connect and understand, and once we learn about why Hashem is giving us this mitzvah, to as much as we're able to perceive, then we can do it because we really want to do it, not because just Hashem told us to do it, but because we connect and we understand on a deeper level how it affects us in a positive sense. Mimele, the automatic result, when a person does something that it's his will, he connects to it more. We all know that when bringing up children or people we care about and we try to affect them in a positive sense, then we try to make them see that it's for their best benefit to perform things. And not that we're forcing them. When someone forces someone, he does it out of fear. It doesn't really connect him because it's not him. He's doing what the other person wants him to do. But when someone gets a deep understanding how it's beneficial for him, then he has a motivation to connect it. Mele, what the bottom line that comes out is that we shouldn't only learn the laws themselves, but we should also connect to the spirit of the law, because that creates the ratzon. The ratzon, we know, is how we connect to things. And ratzon is also otiyot tzino, which is the way we connect to Hashem. It's a tzino, it's a tube that connects us to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Another friend of mine showed me the Hakdama to the Tzlach. The Tzlach is the Noida B'Yudah. He writes a very, very interesting Hakdama that he explains over there the importance of when you learn, not just to learn the laws, but like we're saying, also try to get a bit to the Agadata and the Gemara, and a little bit to try to get as much as you're able to an understanding in things from a more spiritual perspective, because then you can connect to the things better. But his main nekuda is, even if you don't understand much, but we should never put down people that are mashkia and invest time into learning things that are more on the side of not pshat, but more drash, remez and soid. Why? Because he says, by doing as much as you can here, you get whatever you achieve, that will give you the tools to be able to achieve more in Olam Haba. Because there's some things that we can't achieve here, but at least we're working on getting the tools that will be able to in the future connect to all parts of the Torah. So that's connected to us, because we're doing our best. We know we're not going to get, as the Chinuch says in his Akdama, there's no way we can get to everything, because we don't have the capability, the brain power to understand to the deepest extent. But whatever we can, we should, because not only are we going to benefit from this in this world, like we said, you're going to perform the mitzvahs and get to the end result, we're saying, like this foreigner explains, because you're going to connect to it more, but also because it's going to give you you'll become a kli kibul, a vessel to be able to understand more in Olam Haba. And he gives the story to bring out this point, and he says, a mashal, that once upon a time there was a shipwreck, and on the ship was a mother with a little baby. And Baruch Hashem, they were all saved, and they were able to go to a nearby island in no man's land, and no one found them for many years. There was one older person that saw this kid growing up. He was already 8, 9, and he didn't know how to read. He said, I have to teach him the Aleph base. So he starts teaching him, and the kid says to himself, what do I need to learn this? This is such a headache. I need to learn Aleph base, and then how do you read? What do I need this? And he started fighting with the old man, but the old man really cared for him, and he forced him to learn. A couple of years later, they found them, they took them to the city, and only then the child chapped and realized how much this old man saved his life, because he realized that back in the island there was no usage of learning how to read. What's the point? But here he sees that without learning how to read, he wasn't able to do anything. It opened a different world for him. Says that Tzlach, so too will be in Olam Haba. The Noida B'Yudah, who wrote the Tzlach, he says this is how it's going to be in Olam Haba. So as much as we can chap and connect to all perspectives of a mitzvah, including the spirit of the law, and from a spiritual perspective, from a drash perspective, it's good, because it's going to give us the Aleph base to the world to come, to be able to understand and open our doors for more Torah. Right now we don't see how that's going to help so much. We see, based on what we said, that it's going to help us perform the mitzvahs better and connect to them more and do it out of love as opposed to only out of fear. But it's going to open so many more doors in the world to come, that it's well worth investment. I'd like to end with a story that my wife said I should say, even though I know it's a very popular story, and mistama, at least half of you already know this, if not 80% of you, but I'll still say it gets connected. There was a famous story on Sukkah's time with the Gaon Mevilna, that it was a very rare commodity to find an esrog for Sukkahs. So the Gaon asked a couple of his close friends to go out and search for an esrog for him. So they went to this far village. Finally, they found people selling esrogim, and they looked and they found the perfect one, and they wanted to buy it. But the person that was selling it said, I'm sorry, this one's for me. I'm not selling this one. This is perfect. And they begged him and pleaded with him, but he wouldn't budge. Then they said, But do you know who this is going to be for? This is for the Gaon Vilna. So the person selling the Esoigim thought about it for a couple of seconds, and he said, "You know what? I'm willing to sell it only for one condition, not for money. I want to get the reward of the mitzvah that the Gaon Vilna is going to perform. I want to get it. That's the only condition I'm willing to give it to you." They didn't know if to agree to this or not. They didn't know how the Gaon Vilna will react. We had no idea, but they said, "Okay, it's better than nothing. We might as well accept it. There's no other choice." They were very scared and worried as they were going back on their trip to the Gaon Vilna. They come to the Gaon Vilna and they give it to him. And he was jumping for joy because he said, "Finally, I was praying for the opportunity of doing a mitzvah without getting a reward. But there isn't such a thing. You always get a reward. And I know how much mitzvahs are worth. Finally, I get a real opportunity to show HaKadosh Baruch Hu how much I love him and how much I appreciate his mitzvahs, because I know the mitzvahs are going to change me. And I am able to get this opportunity to do a mitzvah really lishma, l'Shem Hashem, because this is what Hashem wants, and not out of any other personal agendas." And the Gaon Vilna was able to get to such a level for many reasons, one of which is because he knew, and he reached this level of connecting to every mitzvah and realizing how good it is for him, and not because of the reward. The reward is not what talked to him, but he realized what he's doing when he performs every mitzvah. Yeh Ratzon that will be able to connect to the Torah, not only understanding the laws, but also connecting to the spirit of the law. Have a good Shabbos.
The Prisman of Torah podcast, the weekly Dvar Torah by Rabbi Asaf, Aron, Prisman. Produced by Eli Kampf. For any questions or comments, please feel free to email us prismanoftorah@gmail.com, prismanoftorah@gmail.com. Our website prismanoftorah.com is currently undergoing construction.